Well, thank you all so much for joining us for the Atlanta Film Festival's Creative Conference International Filmmaker Roundtable. I am Chris Anthony Hamilton, writer-director based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am very, very excited to have with me a handful of some incredible international filmmakers from different corners of the planet here who've all made incredible films that are screening at this year's film festival. We have Timeea Mohamed Ahmed, we have LiYing Chien, we have Pranav Bhasin, and we have Ilgın Korugan. So I want to thank you all first and foremost for joining us for this roundtable, and congratulations on the film festival selections and for making some incredible films. So first and foremost, I would love to jump right in with Pranav's film, which is extremely funny and relatable. So I wanted to ask you, just what was the moment that inspired you to create your film, Intelligent, and how did it come about?
Well, thanks for having us, first of all. Um, my through the pandemic, my father was unemployed, and he'd always been working before that, so it was kind of strange to have him around all the time, at home. And there was a lot of conversation going on about how AI is going to be taking over jobs, and with a workforce heavy country, like a labor intensive country like India, it was such a scary thing to think about that people around us were sort of feeling helpless about it. And then at some point, I think it just started to feel like it would be a funny thought if somebody even tried to excuse me, if somebody even tried to like protest against it, or put up a fight against it, because it would be such an unfair fight. um and but I thought maybe willpower was the way to like actually battle it, and it will take like an insane level of delusion for somebody to actually go out and do it. And that's how these sort of characters came together. And yeah, it was like a silly joke that I enjoyed, that I sort of followed for a while until it became a script. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, We Were Here is a comedy, and it is very heartfelt and funny. How was it that you decided on comedy as the vehicle for this particular story?
Actually, comedy came to me before it was even a film, because it was sort of a joke that I told my producer, and we didn't have a film back then. It was just thought that somebody, there was a visual of a man, like an old man, standing on a terrace of a small town in India, and wearing a dish antenna, and saying that he's going to replace all of AI instead of AI replacing him. And that was a silly sort of thought that sort of you know struck a chord. And yeah, that actually led to the depth behind the film. But it started with a silly idea.
Love that. Love that. Well, it stays silly throughout, but while also kind of showing the heart of the characters there. So while we're talking about heart, I wanted to quickly turn to Ilhan and talk about your film, where there is so much kind of subtlety and nuance to the heart that comes through with your film, Everything Between Us. Can you tell me a little bit about how much of this story mirrors your own personal experience, or if it was something that came from some other source of inspiration?
Yeah, it's not entirely autobiographical, but it kind of stemmed, the river idea kind of came up when I myself was sitting by a river. Actually, at the time I was living in Los Angeles, so it was the LA River specifically, which is this really interesting space, like in the middle of such a urban, like sprawling city. It's this really cool oasis kind of. And it's much wider than the river in the film. So I was sitting there and I was like, oh, what would it actually look like for someone to show up on the other side? And for us to kind of communicate without talking, what kind of a relationship could develop with this distance, with this barrier. So that was my personal experience, and then developing it sort of into this like coming of age story. Yes, I mean, I feel like the two characters are like two different parts of me, like I was definitely a metalhead, but I didn't necessarily like dress up like that. It was kind of internal. Like it's kind of like the other girl who she listens to the same kind of stuff, but you would never know because of like how she's presenting. So And in terms of like characters, I think I'm actually more similar to Jeran, who the other girl who comes across, who's like, "Hey, let me be your friend," rather than the more like closed off. But I think the main character Azra was kind of like this rebel part of me where I'm like, I wish I had, rebelled against things. I wish I had kind of been more like her. So it was actually a really cool exercise to try and write that character because it was a little bit different than my personal experience, but it was very cathartic.
I can imagine. I can imagine. It's always incredible to see a filmmaker create multiple characters that represent the different sides of their own personality and see them interact with each other and kind of run that experiment, if you will. So it was really, really touching. In terms of the casting, I was curious because there is such subtlety and nuance to the performances there. Was there one role in particular that you found exceptionally difficult to cast?
I mean, I think we got so lucky with the casting. First of all, I didn't want to do the thing where we're casting 30-year-olds as teenagers, so I really wanted to find a teenager. But it's really hard, obviously, because a lot of working actors there, especially in Istanbul, they will have had graduated from the conservatory here, so they're like at least 21. And then somebody gave me the idea to go back to my own high school and their theater club. So that's how we found our main actress. She is a senior at my high school currently, and she was, a sophomore at the time. And in terms of the nuances of the performance, I think we just like, you know, we invited everyone who was interested to an audition, and then as soon as Ece auditioned, we were like, this is Azra. And it's interesting because she's also not that similar to the character. There were people who were more similar to the character. So I think she brought this kind of depth um, to the character being a little bit more different. Um, yeah, if that I hope that answers the question. But the
Yeah.
nuances of it, I mean, we also talked about the character a lot, but we did a lot of because we didn't think we would get a lot of time on set. So we did a lot of practice beforehand with both of the characters. And I was just super lucky. I mean, the actress, she thought so in depth about the character and did her own analyses and yeah, just through conversations.
Amazing, amazing. Well, you cast it brilliantly, and those performances really do shine as feeling natural and very human. So very, very impressive. Turning to LiYing real quickly. Inspired by Lip Balm has such an interesting kind of collection of characters. Some that are as from the story structure point of view imagined by one of the other characters. So I was curious how that process was for you to kind of navigate casting these characters that are going to be ultimately engaging with one another, kind of jumping out of our lead character's imagination.
Uh, you mean the character of the story?
Yeah, yeah. The two
The,
characters that she's writing for,
yeah.
they're kind of larger than life, and then eventually they all come together. So I was curious how you navigated kind of the casting these characters in a way that was going to kind of make them feel so big and vibrant coming out of the imagination of a character that is a little bit more grounded.
Yes. The story is from one of my comic books, and so they use the comic books to do a workshop, and so I think there are many different ideas. And when I saw it's to talk about some, you mean, like fat girls in Asia society, and maybe uh some because I want to do some series in East Asia. Maybe it's really hard. So for me, it's many different. Uh, I think it's we have to please something. I think maybe it's the main idea of the different these two stories. So and yeah, so and when I was write this script, and I was doing an adaptation of a Korean drama, and so I got many advice from platform, like so for me it's a yeah. So I just want to talk about some characters who how can I say? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's too hard. Maybe it's too hard in English. Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. It's a really beautiful film. I was curious how you if the writing of this script was kind of a mirror for your experience trying
Yes.
to adapt projects
Yes.
for these various platforms.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you navigate writing the film with this structure where we see the characters' thought process and the way that they envision the story that they're writing while trying to make it work for these platforms?
Yeah. It's the idea from American movie. It's then adaptation, by Charlie Kaufman, and so for me, it's I really like meta things. Yeah. So and the beginning is the writers who adapt her comic, but in the end, maybe the whole thing become reels, and how can the vehicle drama, very very short, every episode maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it's very very popular in, I think, in whole world, but it's the most popular in Asia. So there are, if there I think maybe it's the how can I say, they earn lots of money in China, so it's the ironic thing. I think maybe it's the how the writers or directors want their things go to maybe some movies or some series, but in the end, everything comes on everybody's phones. So yeah, so for me the different form or different platform, I think it's really really interesting for me to do many kind of adaptation. Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't even think about the movie adaptation while I was watching your film, but it makes perfect sense. It's such a great interpretation of that structure. So congratulations on that. It comes together very, very beautifully. Well done. To me, I was curious for you, your film is about a different type of relationship than the other films, a relationship between people in their country, their homeland. So I was curious what that relationship means to you and a little bit about your backstory and how it relates to the creation of this film.
Thank you so much, Chris, and everyone for sharing their wonderful stories with their films. So, is it war is a question that I posed after the war started in Sudan, Khartoum in 2023 April, which is the Nile is a river in Sudan, and it was an important question because there were always some sort of continuous conflict since the establishment of the state of Sudan since 1956, but it was not ever in Khartoum, and that also puts you in a very bubble that will make you think that yeah, there will be something, but it can't be in Khartoum. That's like the rule of life that we knew of. So it was a bit surprising that it could occur in Khartoum, and as with this size of a war between the RSF militias and the SAF or the army or the state. And then it was like, yeah, few days and it will stop. Few days and it will stop. This is just 2 days and it will pass. It doesn't look like it's a serious thing. And then it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows and it keeps going. So I stayed there for 6 months and I started to film stuff around the house and write these questions. Just posting these short videos. Where should I go? Is it actually war? I don't think it is. I will deny this for a while. And then I moved temporarily to Kenya before I come here, and then we start digging the idea of let's write something. I wrote a poem, and I don't write poetry, I swear. I write some sort of a poem, and then I was like, okay, I wrote this so I can see it. Then I was showing it to some friends and directors, and I was part of an artist residency, and they were like, you should make a film about this. And I was like, but that's not a fiction, and it's absolutely not a doc. And where should I fall here? And they were like, okay, this is experimental then. And that redefined how I think about boxes. And I don't like experimental. This is not my tea. Like I even as audience member, I don't go to the cinema to watch experimental films as much. But I tried my best to just make this film relatable to Sudanese at least. But in the very last, I made this film for myself. I didn't make it for audience, and I had no expectations for audiences. Maybe as maximum, I did it for my grandchild, not for further audiences. So yeah, I found Jaffer, my main protagonist, or my main character, my main actor. So many names. And then Jaffer is naturally a lunatic. I love him. We decided to go with this like odd costumes, and we created his own world to be cradling around or just living around this world and posing his questions, which are my questions, and arguing with his own self and arguing back with his thoughts in general. And then yeah, that's how it developed initially, and that's how it goes. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing to hear that this approach to filmmaking is not one that you generally like to consume as a film watcher. You say you don't write poetry. The poetry in the film is really, really beautiful. The structure of the film is really beautiful as well. It tells this story in a way that is extremely heartfelt, that is extremely poetic, and both visually and through the dialogue. How did it feel for you going through this process, kind of jumping out of your comfort zone, creating something that was kind of diametrically opposed to the types of filmmaking that you typically like to watch and consume?
So I don't want to sound as controversial as I did, but uh, my issue with some experimental films is about I want to understand the film when I go to the cinema. Like I don't want to stay strangled, just be like, okay, amazing visuals, but I didn't get the story. That's the general issue that I have with some experimental productions. And then what made me feel that okay, let's redefine the boxes. Let's okay. I have a theory that these boxes are defined by humans, and we can be half there. Some people call my film a doc. That was interesting to hear, but then it all falls back to how people were formed and how their brains were experiencing cinema. And that differs from region to region, from someone to someone, and from experience to experience. And that made me rethink the firm boxes of things. Like, okay, you can do a fiction, but it has experimental spices. It has a breadth of documentary. It has there's always some sort of a mix, especially with we see this more in documentary, which is I'm a big fan of, and I'm a big like I call myself, like one of my friends say, Ron, I'm a documentary supremacist, if I can say that. So that's what I love about documentary. You can play around everything. You can put actors, but you can also put a voiceover, and then you can put a narrator. Like I love this mixture of things. So it's definitely interesting, and then it doesn't narrow how I think about film and how I consume films in the future. Yeah. Okay.
Well done. I mean, I think that mix of genres that you experience in the film definitely makes it unique, because it obviously has kind of this documentary storytelling element to it, while having these experimental elements as well that just make it very compelling, and kind of, I think, pull us along as we're watching the film and then discovering the story that it's telling. So I really enjoyed how you kind of mashed up these different elements to make it something that's very, very unique and special. So congratulations on that. It was really fantastic. Pranav, turning back to you quickly, I really loved the idea of, because we talked about adaptation, and I think Charlie Kaufman has such a very specific voice in terms of kind of creating these surreal elements to it. And I felt like your film had some of that too. Were there certain films or other types of media that inspired your approach to We Were Here?
Wow, I have no direct answer to that. I mean, I love Charlie Kaufman's work. I love being John Malkovich so much. I I don't know. I think one of the films that people speak about the most when they watch the film is What We Do in the Shadows, because it's a mockumentary format. But I never really thought about it too much I don't think it was deliberate for it to be a mockumentary. It was just an exploration of a story for me and of humor for me. And I sort of um because short films don't really have a format that needs to be followed, and there's nothing stopping me, I just thought I should just make it whatever I want it to be. And so I think the film starts off as a very simple, almost sketch-like mockumentary, and then sort of gets into these characters and the people that surround them and how they're affected by the extreme sort of step that these people have taken in their lives, and how um yeah, just like the minute details that come along with being able to take doing something outlandish. Like I used to think a lot about actually I used to think a lot about the flat earthers.
Hmm.
'Cause it felt like a very outlandish sort of thought that so many people come together to talk about something so and that they're so sure about. And when I was pitching the film or like telling people about it, I used to sort of use that as a reference point to be like, hey, this is possible. People can also do something wild like this, and they can be protesting about it. Um, but that was one reference. I actually thought a lot. I also thought a lot about Nathan Fielder. I really love The Rehearsal. So he's somebody I'm super inspired by, humor wise, I guess. And I thought about this film called The Banshees of Inisherin, which is also about this sort of obscure place. And I thought about the poignance that sort of comes from there. But these are obviously just sort of like films that I guess thought about. I wasn't really trying to like put them in any way, but these are when we were in pre-production, and we were also talking to the musician and the cinematographer, etc. The sense of poignance and reality became very um, crucial, and there was a lot of rewriting we did as well on the set for that to sort of come out more. As we started to meet the actors and sort of speak to them, we realized certain like a couple of things could actually be brought out more, and reality things could start feeling more real by letting these characters play themselves out a little bit more. And um and I think that also sort of found itself into the film. For example, there's a scene in the film where the the wife of one of the um of Mr. Bakshi, the character who plays Mr. Bakshi, the character whose name is Mr. Bakshi. Um, she doesn't have any technology in her house because the husband is taking a stand against technology, and so she suffers because of that. And there's a scene in the middle of the film where she just goes into the electronics store that where they go and usually protest and do their R&D work, and she starts using their washing machine and fridge to just for like household stuff. And that's her way of rebelling against stuff and at the same time keeping the same stand. And that was something that just came up while we were recceing and we met the character and stuff. So yeah, it's I don't know how exactly things have turned out to be this way, but they're yeah, I guess it's a lot of inspirations from many, many different things.
That scene is so funny, and it stood out to me because it does kind of create this contrast
Yeah.
between attempting to rebel against this kind of revolution in technology while also being practical and trying to make our lives easier. So,
Yeah.
in terms of how, Christopher Guest is another filmmaker who was a big pioneer in the mockumentary kind of genre when you one of the things that I have always found very impressive is casting actors who can walk that line because typically in a mockumentary you want those characters to feel really grounded because it's the contrast between the groundedness of the characters and their performances and the situations that we find them in that kind of creates that comedy a lot of the time to make it feel like a documentary with a kind of a silly element to it. So how long did it take for you to cast these characters in order to walk that line?
Yeah, I mean, I think casting was everything in this one. Um, Actually, I based a lot of this film on a previous, I mean, on the experience that I had from a previous mockumentary that I made maybe like 8 years ago or something, which I didn't send into any festivals or anything. It was just something that I put out on YouTube for and just made with my friends. And that sort of was liked on YouTube, I guess, and it was appreciated a lot by the people that saw it. And the concept of that film was that it was about a slum boy in Bombay who decides to who's like essentially he lives in a crime-ridden area, and it's almost appreciated for there to be crime in that area. And he is a very innocent artist sort of person. He's sort of like a guy who likes to draw and sketch and stuff, and he's not appreciated for doing that because it's only crime that matters, and people should be getting caught by the police and be harassed, and that's the sort of world that's better developed in that film. um, and he sort of watches a video by Banksy, and he realizes that he can actually be vandalizing buildings, and that's how he could actually make a business and a career, and he gets a lot of street cred for that and becomes an entrepreneur of sorts. And that was a again like an outlandish sort of funny idea that we had. But what we did is we casted a lot of locals in that. We shot in real locations, and a lot of things just come from there. um, and I think when we were approaching it this time, we knew that the challenge is that I don't really know any direct people that would look exactly like the role. And so we had a casting director that I've worked with many times, who's absolutely lovely. It gets exactly what I'm looking for. And he like does not limit himself in terms of anything really, because um even though they look like they're locals, they're all three of the main leads have been or the men have been like hired from different parts of the world, in fact, because the lead actually was in Melbourne in Australia, and he flew down from there to play this character. And another one was from Maharashtra in a different state in India, and another one was in Calcutta, which is the opposite end of India. So they all sort of were flown down to be able to make this film happen, which is actually a major, most expensive part of the budget. But they just seemed so right for the role, and we didn't want to compromise on that. So we just got the best people we could, and yeah, all the credit really goes to my casting director there.
Amazing. Well, he did an incredible job because making those characters feel real is, as you said, really what makes the film so funny and compelling is by you believing these characters. So very well done on the casting end. Um, well, Ilhan, I was curious for you when we see these two characters relating to each other eventually over this book that they share. We see Arza decide to go and find the same book that she sees Karen reading. What is the significance of that book to you, or reading in general, in terms of how people relate to each other?
Yeah, I mean that book in particular, The Dispossessed, by Ursula Le Guin. I read that at the same age as the characters when I was 16, and it kind of changed my life in a way, or it just opened up a whole new world. I mean, as I'm a huge science fiction nerd, and like that book in particular, it's just like the way Ursula Le Guin sees gender roles and just destroys them and flips them on their head. And similarly, taking a capitalist system, flipping it's on its head, exploring this like anarchist experiment kind of, for people who haven't read the book, it kind of presents an alternative world. And in terms of why I used it, other than it being, I love it and I read it at that age, I feel like for me, like this relationship between the two, like Jeran kind of presents an alternative to Azra. Azra, she's doesn't really like the people at school. At home, it's not terrible, but they don't really get her. Like she can't really be her authentic self in these spaces and feel comfortable. And I think for a lot of kids who maybe were bullied or just didn't feel like they fit in, books and novels especially offer a world to hide in. And with fantasy, with science fiction, it just like you can kind of transport into this other world. And so on top of it becoming something that they can relate to each other with, also because Azra has her phone taken away, so she like can't really do anything else. Um, yeah, like they're relating through this world, but also the world itself becomes a place where she can kind of hide in and kind of explore different things. So she kind of, we see from the scenes where she's just like nonstop reading the book, which is something, I miss a lot. In high school, I would finish a book in a day. It was just like I don't have that stamina anymore or, attention span. But yeah, that's the main reason why I wanted there to be a book and for it to be that specific book.
Well, it's that kind of formation of their relationship. I think that aspect of it made it really special because we never see them discuss the book at all. We never see them, actually have a kind of one-on-one where they talk about that, how each of them is affected by it. So what was the importance of that to you in terms of kind of showing that just the power of how just sharing a moment or sharing a piece of media can expose things about each other, one another. What was the message that you wanted to give behind that?
I'm not sure about a particular message, but in terms of the characters, Azra, when she sees Jeran at first, Jeran is kind of a part of this kind of bully popular group, right? Like she associates her with the other girls who are kind of being mean to her. So she has these expectations of what Jeran will be like. She kind of is like cold shoulder, doesn't really want to talk to her. But then first with the song recommendation and then with the book, she's like, oh, okay, maybe we have the same interests. And well, I guess there is a message now that I'm talking about it. Um, the main reason I did write this was that we can find solidarity in people we don't expect. I think we always assume that our struggles are so individual in particular when ultimately it's just the human struggle. Like obviously there are differences, but the feeling of loneliness, feeling like you're not understood, I think for a really long time, I thought I was so, it's just me. No one, it's like the third culture kid syndrome of like, I'm the only person who's like feeling like this. But it's even if somebody isn't a third culture kid, everybody experiences isolation and loneliness and they feel like they're not understood. And I think also we're increasingly leaning into that, unfortunately, with social media and how isolating everything is. We're all like stuck in our little bubble, feeling like no one understands us when like really, I mean, that's also with Jeran coming at the end and she's crying and she's clearly struggling with something else that maybe she hadn't presented up front. That is the message there is that, if we open ourselves up, we will find people who kind of are experiencing the same thing or something similar we can relate to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so much goes unsaid in your film, which I think, at least for me as an audience member, made me really lean in and participate in kind of imagining what is going on in the minds of the characters. And that was really compelling to me. So I thought that was really, really well done. Turning back to you, LiYing, your film kind of goes in the opposite direction in terms of there is so much expression, there is so much being said constantly in terms of how how the characters are communicating with each other. Your main character, how she is being kind of put in a position, an uncomfortable position to write something that she isn't really, in a way that she is not intending to write it. And then the characters that she's imagining, the expression that they are, the way that they talk to each other, the way that they're interacting, it's all very, very big and vibrant. So I was curious for you, how did you approach the way that you were directing your actors in order to get all of that expression out of them to make it feel so vibrant and compelling in a different way? Yeah, you're muted right now, LiYing.
Sorry. Okay. The main character, the actress, she is very very she's my friend, and she's very very how can I say, she's very very excellent actress in Taiwan, and we works many years, a long time. So for me, I think I think for and the other uh, 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 character, the writers who imagination, uh, they the actors also also work with me in theater. So I think I think maybe because we are all friends, and so we share some same experience, and so for I think for the writers and directors, um, when our characters maybe no, how can I say, sometimes we change our characters, but sometimes we met our characters in our real life. So I think it's the is the time I will find, yes, I should keep my character. So yeah, I think it's the I got many this moment, and in the for example, in the real life, we have so many um, more complicated relationship, but sometimes in the show business, you have to change things into more pink, more sweet. Yeah. So I think yeah. But even in my career now, so I usually make I usually um yeah, I feel lots of things. Yeah. So I think the actors, maybe they got the same things with me, and we work together many years, and yeah, we I think it's a really good thing. Yeah, you work with your friends, and we rehearsal many times, and we work maybe couple of months. Yeah, and so I think maybe we exchange our so many deep, so we can share the same goal. Yeah.
Well, I think the relationship that you have with your actors obviously gave you something of a shorthand with them, so that it made the communication process between all of you much more smooth. And you see that kind of in the resulting film, and because their performances are so bold and exciting, and I think it's very impressive to see the way that they, especially the characters that the main character is writing, they have to kind of go in and out of character
Yeah.
because they're expressing the writer's efforts to write the story and change it in a certain way in order to please this, the streamers, as it were. It was impressive to see those two characters be able to navigate the different moods that are shifting throughout the whole film in a way that's very, very dynamic and forces you to really think about the writing process. So I was curious about, it seems to me that there are several messages in your film. One of them obviously is about, people's proclivity to focus more on the way people look, their bodies, that kind of thing, especially in romantic settings. And then there's also this idea of a writer having to change their story or change the way that they write in order to try to have a successful career. So I was wondering if there's anything else that you were hoping that the audience would take away from the film at the end of the story, or what was the main mission, or what was the main what was the main message that motivated you to try to get the audience to think about after the film is over?
Oh, I think you said very very well. Yeah, it's it the two things, the body, everybody watch, and the writers want to please the streamers. I think it's the kind. These two things I want to audience take away, and I think, but for me it's I, I really like to some things is put the real thing and the unreal thing together. So in the end, maybe I really like writers. How can I say, see their stories in the real life. Yeah, kind of these things. Yeah. So for my past works, so I really like do some real and unreal put together, and it is combine the structure and the stories. I really like different storylines come together, and let's look how it is works. Yeah. So for me, maybe it's for the writers. Sometimes the characters maybe will teach the writers more than the writers think. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's a beautiful sentiment. And the way that you bring the worlds together at the end with the writer, the main character, kind of joining the world of the characters that she's writing is done really, really beautifully. The way that the colors shift and the wardrobe and just her character, the performance, how it becomes more vibrant at the end as well, was really, really
Yeah.
beautiful done. So
So,
I thought that.
for me, I always like when people dance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe dance can talk more things. Yeah. And one of the things, the last songs, when the girl dance, is kind of a band. Is also my friend, and the band is they watch my comic books and get their inspire them to write this song. So for me it's the coincidence. Yeah, so it's wow, yeah, just write this song. Yeah, so for me, maybe how can I say, maybe friends come together. Yeah, so and we also want, because all my friends, maybe we doing in the show business maybe for a few years, so we are refine we want to check our how can I say, our goal or our why we start show business. Yeah, so I think it's the process. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. The dance sequence at the end, I think it makes perfect sense in the way that it showcases the freedom that each of the characters
Yes,
is kind of encountering as a result of just them discovering this idea that they can just be who they are. They don't have to change in order to please anybody, and you feel like they all come together in that way through the
yes.
dance at the end. So I thought that was really, really beautiful. Very, very well done. I loved it. Um, to me, I was curious for you, turning the focus a little bit to the logistics of making all of these films. I was curious where you shot, and kind of what the process was like for A, raising the money for the film, and B, just pulling it all together. Like how much of a challenge was it to actually get it done?
Thank you, Chris. So, this is my third film, second official release, as it were. So I wanted to do this film with a sense of more preparations, if I could say that. So I took my time. Like, we took a year in development of like just back and forth on the script and back and forth on how should we cast this. And even the cast was not, the main character was not supposed to be Jafar. It was supposed to be someone else. And then Jafar just jumped in because of like just logistical issues. He just jumped in a week ahead of the shoot, technically. No practice, no, just two meetings, and we rolled down with it. So as far as you prepare, there is nothing you can do much in film, in your productions. Extremely low budget. I think I'm also ashamed to say a number. It's extremely low budget, but there was a huge sense of community to it. That was the value that was brought to the film. As we got the gear from someone we know, we got that. We like the cameraman is a friend that I worked with for long years, Ibrahim. Uh, the like every like contributor to the film, different, like the kid is also in our other film, another feature documentary, Khartoum. So grabbing every element together to make the film has been a matter of, okay, we like the story and we are in the same boat, so we can make this happen in a more sense. So I was part of an arts residency that helped a lot. They provided like support, advice. It was called The Rest. They provided, and it was shot in Kenya, in Nairobi. But what I would say is that, can you really tell? Like, can anyone tell that it was shot where? That's the most important value for me, honestly. It's like, this is Jaffar's world. It's in a park. It's nothing. It could be shot here in Alberta or all across. But the thing is, it's his world that we try to create, that he is locked at, and it made the film unexpectedly for me more universal in a language of sense. Like, different people from all across can read his movement, can read his debating with his thoughts and self, and realizing the distance. He tells the distance in kilometers, and that falls into where is he, but in which direction. So pulling the film together was challenging, but it was not an extremely difficult situation. The more extreme difficult was in the development for me, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said about the filming in that park and making it feel universal, I identified with that right away because I think it does a great job of creating that universality, of creating this sense of these types of scenarios could happen to anyone in any part of the world. It can be the experience of anyone, and it makes the viewer, at least for me, think about, what would my world look like if it were kind of torn apart in this way. And the way that the poetry describes it in the film is or the way that you described it is that it isn't always like a light switch. You don't just go from peace to war in overnight. Sometimes it creeps up and it turns your world upside down without you necessarily even seeing it happen in a very overt way. And I think that is even more relatable. So I thought that went a long way to kind of feel like it was something that people can understand in a personal way. And your main actor, I think, goes a long way to amplify that feeling by being so relatable. I mean, we see joy in his face at certain moments. We see a whole range of emotions. So it
Yeah.
feels very three-dimensional.
Yeah, and the fact is, like, it takes time to realize that this is a war, and also it takes time to realize the parties of the war, because within this modern time it's so complicated. Okay, you can tell that the world, okay, we have Russia, Ukraine now, we have the Zionist regime and the US attacking Iran, and we have, okay, Sudan internal, and then we call this civil, but this is not the people that are fighting. Okay, but what should we name this? It's fueled by who? Okay, there's the UAE. Like, the fact that it took me almost a year or more to realize the dynamics of the war, and that because I'm so, like, involved in human rights violation documentation and, like, so different things. That's why I could be aware of it. But what's about an average Sudani person? Like, okay, we know that they're, like, external parties, but we never understand, okay, it's happening, but it's not fueled with what you think it is, and it's not what you might call a civil war. It's not like the American Civil War, or like any other civil. We had some civil wars and stuff, but it's not because it's internal, then it's a civil war. And then just realizing that and understanding it and then conveying it, that definitely takes a longer journey than that a person mind can expect it to be. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey for us as the filmmakers, and for me as someone who have experienced or seen this firsthand.
Hmm. And coming kind of as you described before, coming out of your comfort zone in terms of the type of filmmaking that you were doing here, being very different from what you were accustomed to even consuming. I'm curious how, and you mentioned the sentiment that I really loved of the idea of you making this for yourself and for your grandchildren. Um, I'm curious what you hope the impact will be, considering that, this is clearly not, this film is not an endeavor that is, that was created for the business purpose of trying to, make a piece of a commodity for people to consume in the economic sense, but about conveying an idea, a thought, a sense of feeling and connection there. So, do you have a sense of what you hope the impact will be when your grandchildren, for example, see the film down the line?
Yeah, so as I said before, I believe every film falls into more than its genre, and the most valuable like concept for me for film in general is archiving, and like what happened and how it happened and how did humans experience it, not just in numbers, not just in statistics. So that's an important factor for me. And when we started submitting for film festivals, the first one ever and the only, I guess, for a period of few months, it was a film festival in France called Clermont-Ferrand, and zero expectations, nothing. And then we got into the festival, and then we were okay. Some people might understand this, and that was the challenge also with translation, because this film is so Sudani in its own. Like I'm telling you, like even people from Egypt or just the surrounding countries of Sudan could be having difficulties understanding not the language itself because it's just Arabic, but like the slang and the depth and the memes, and it also has a way um, of like this language that developed post-war. Like there's new terms, and what do we mean by that or this. uh there's also some like there's at the end of the film there's a character in another series in Sudan scene that says that do we eat lentils, or do we hate our country, or do we leave it. Like it's not an easy thing to translate in context or in language in general, uh, or dialects exactly. So the impact that I'm hoping to be is that okay, let's start with know Sudan. Let's know Sudan. Let's point it at the map, because I understand that's a huge challenge for a lot of people. And then let's try to look this up, maybe help in different ways, telling our neighbors or tweet about it or condemn the UAE or donate something if possible. Like there's so much ways that I'm hoping the film can amplify, other than the fact that I want people to feel it from a perspective of an individual human, that not just not just annoyed by the war and not just sad about it. He have more nuance to it. He has some happy moments within the war. He calls his girlfriend and he wants her to cross the border, and he is denying his location, and he is saying that if Khartoum is still Khartoum, which is a bit of philosophy of like, regardless of what happens in the future, Khartoum will never be Khartoum. Like it, at least maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but it can never be exactly the same as it was, as the character or myself lived at it in a certain time. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping audiences watching the film understand, relate, and feel how some individuals experience the war in Sudan, at least within that sense. And I think that could relate to a lot of people.
Well, you made something really, really beautiful, and it feels like a little bit of a time capsule in a way. So, I think about, I have a 10-year-old daughter who lives in Europe. So I think about the films that I make in the context of how she will um, remember or understand my experience of the world through the films that I make when she sees them later on in her life. I have no doubt that, your children and your children's children will look back at this and be really inspired first and foremost by the creativity and the sensitivity that went into making this film. So again, congratulations on that, because it is a really, really beautiful work of art.
Thank you, and I hope they don't turn to be filmmakers. That's why I also make.
Yeah. Right there with you. Um, well, turning to Pranav, you've made several films now. I'm curious about how does the filmmaking process change for you? Do you find that the more you do it, the easier it gets? Do you find that you just find different challenges as you move on to a new film? How is this filmmaking process different from your previous films?
It's a loaded question again. I think I was actually watching Richard Ayoade speak about something recently, and he had made this film called Submarine, and he was talking about how he thought that everything he's learned in this film is gonna be is it's not gonna be able he can't replicate it ever again. And because the next project's gonna be like the next film he picks up is just gonna be a completely different thing. It's gonna teach him something completely different. And I could relate to that a lot, I guess. Because before I made this film, I'd never worked on a film that had any budget at all. At least for a short film that I'd written myself, or any project that I really believed in. And to like, to put a film. For the longest time, I couldn't make We Were Here because nobody was willing to put money behind a short film. India, of course, doesn't have any market for short films, which is understandable. But also, it's kind of looked down upon to make short films in this country, unfortunately. So I find that to be a little bit silly, but I like that I actually like that I really like this format, and I want to continue working on short films, not because they're not. I don't see the hierarchy between shorts and features and shows or whatever. I just like the format. I really love the format. So I'd written the short, and I wasn't able to make it for a long time. And then at some point, I sort of maybe like a year or two later, I recognized that I if I don't make this film, nobody will. And I do not have the money to make this film, but I know that even if I get the slightest of nudges to like go out and do it, I'm just gonna go do it. And somebody, I think I work in advertising as a director, and one of the agency creatives told me that he put in like 20% of the budget that we needed. And I said, that's all I need. And I just kind of went and I started speaking to a lot more people that way. And I started figuring out how I'm going to put everything together thereon. And of course, lots of things happened, but I think there was a certain sense of absolute faith in the idea that if I have this intuition that I want to like go out and make this movie, then it's just gonna get made automatically. Like I won't really have to do too much to put it together. And in the where I come from, there isn't a lot of organization. There is actually no organization towards filmmaking whatsoever. Bombay is one of the most chaotic cities in the world, and we only have Bollywood, which is which is a it's nothing to do with what I do, I guess. um but it was fascinating how it came together, and I think I learned a lot. I learned that if the idea of the film is to be made, it's just going to get made, and I just have to have faith in it and I have to keep walking the path, then it's going to happen. And it's sort of oddly connected to faith, I guess, but that's what I really learned from this film. And At the moment, I've been working on a feature for like 6 years now, which I wrote the first draft of 4 years ago, and I wrote the treatment of 6 years ago when I was called to America for the first time ever, by this filmmaker called Jim Cummings, to his short to feature lab in Malibu. And he did not know it was my first time in America, but he just sort of called me in, and I had just an idea for a feature, but I sort of understood that I started learning about how I can make an independent feature from there. Um, but it's been a long journey with a lot of like learnings, and I'm back at that now, after the short, and I think I have like printouts right now, and I have no idea how to make movies. I think like that's how I feel when I'm writing all the time. So yeah, it's just that again and again, and you kind of like just keep doing it till you sort of figure out something and you feel like you're excited enough, and then it starts to find its own path and you follow. And that's how I think films are made. But yeah, that's what I know, I guess.
That's exciting. I mean, I feel like, at least for me, similar to you, I love the short film format. It's just been something that's been very comfortable for me and exciting in terms of being able to tell a story in a more brief amount of time than you would in a series or a feature. And kind of what I expressed to Mia is a short film can really feel like a little bit of a time capsule where it's easily consumable and it kind of encapsulates a moment potentially in a way that is not the same as any other format. But for you, you mentioned that you work in advertising as a director. What kind of directing do you do there? Like, do you mean commercials? What kind of day-to-day work
Sure.
is it? Amazing. So do you find that your short film experience for your own personal projects, does that inform the way you work on commercials as well? Does it give you an advantage in terms of people seeing your personal projects and wanting to utilize your specific vision for advertising?
Yeah, and vice versa, I think.
Hmm.
Because there isn't really like I think the world makes very little sense now. So I think that there is no direct answer for how I would distribute my films, whether it's shorts or features. And I think that the opportunity to be able to work on anything exciting, whether it's commercials or music videos or shows or whatever I get and whatever I think is exciting enough and something that I can add value to, I think that I guess it sort of like allows me to polish my skill, learn something new, work with newer people and find new collaborators very often, learn what I don't want to do sometimes. And I think that long form and the things that I really want to make get benefited from that as well. Because again, a lot of the crew members that I found on my short were from people, what people I've known from advertising. And I think that relationship really, of course, lends to how everybody's sort of in sync when we're filming, because no matter what we do, when we're actually filming, and we're in production, time's always very short. And I think one goes a long way if we're all on the same page, of course. Um, but yeah, I don't think too much of advertising, quite frankly. I think I love movies, and I think there's a Venn diagram, and there's a place where the both of them meet somewhere. And I wouldn't call myself the greatest advertising filmmaker, because I don't really commercial, I guess, like commercials director, because it's something I do to practice and to make money and to, it's my day job, I guess. But it somehow happens to also lend a lot to my filmmaking style and to what and how I create things.
That's amazing. Yeah, my experience is very similar. Here in Georgia, I make a living as a director for branded content, branded documentaries, things like that, and then that helps to subsidize my filmmaking when it comes to my personal projects, and I raise funds through crowdfunding and all that kind of thing as well. But they do inform one another. So yeah, my experience is very, very similar. So turning to Ilhan, I'm curious for you, like, how has approaching the business worked for you so far? Do you see yourself as a career filmmaker? Is it much more of a passion? Do those worlds cross over for you?
Yeah, I do want to also say something that when I was saying it reminded me of there was a panel here last year, like in Istanbul, like a filmmaker panel, and one of the filmmakers said that every time you're making a film, it's the first time. It's like the first time you're making a short, the second time you're making a second, sorry, the first time you're making a second short, and then it's the first time you're making your feature, and then it's the first time you're making your second feature. It's like every single time is the first time you're doing something. So it feels like from scratch. But yeah, in terms of how I'm feeling about the business of it all, this was my first short film, like first proper short. Before my friends and I, we kind of made something during the pandemic for the art collective that I was in and when I lived in LA. And that was really fun. And that was the first time I realized I really enjoyed directing actors, because before that I was a bit more documentary. I come from photography. I did photography my whole life, basically. But LA kind of moved me into fiction, as it does, I think, to a lot of people. Um, and yeah, this was the first time I had a budget. It was small, but it was a budget, and we had crew. I worked with more than 3 people for the first time, close to 20, which is a huge crew. And it was the first time I wasn't shooting myself, so I had a DP. Incredible not to have to shoot yourself. So fun to work with somebody, and also to get to collaborate. But sorry, I'm going a little bit off topic. In terms of where I see myself, I was working in commercials for a little bit for a while, and because similar to India and Turkey, there's no short film funds. There's barely any film funds, especially if you're anywhere slightly not aligned with the government. You're not necessarily getting any government funds. Um, but I think I didn't move. I was like, oh, maybe I'll move up and and get to like commercial directing and do that as my day job. But honestly, the schedule of how intense commercials are here, it kind of made it impossible for me to have a schedule for writing and developing my own work. Because when you're on a commercial, they just want you to be available 24/7, basically. So I wasn't able to like set up the lifestyle that I needed for writing, because writing is quite hard for me. I didn't study film, and I need like a lot of time to focus. I need like 7 hours in the day so I can then focus for like an hour. So I need the full day to myself, and that's impossible when you're working on set or in pre-production for a commercial. So I have a different day job. I give SAT lessons, which is great. It's super flexible. Decided to just go out of the industry for my to make money. And yeah, I want to keep making films. I loved it. I mean, the 3 days that we shot this film were the best 3 days of my life. Even though it was super intense and a lot went wrong. Um, I just loved it. So I hope to make some more shorts. I hope to, somehow go into features. I do also similarly, I love the short medium separate than features. I think it's so special. It's so much harder to write a short than to write a feature. I think a lot of people think it's super easy. It's really hard to make somebody feel something in 10 minutes and 15 minutes when you don't have time to develop the character, you don't have time to let people come into the story. A feature has way more space to breathe. So I think you have to be way more meticulous when you're writing a short, which was really hard for me, given also the nature of this one. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would love to keep making films. Obviously, the question there is how you keep funding them and living. So I'm kind of seeing myself as I'll just keep having a day job, and maybe at one point I'll be able to live off of my art, but I'm not really holding on to that because I think that puts too much pressure on the work itself.
Mhm.
So I want to keep it as like the fun thing that I'm doing, not the thing that I'm trying to make money off of.
Yeah. How did you get the support for this film? How did you raise the funds, or where did you get your resources?
All crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Entirely crowdfunded. We applied to some development platforms here, um, and some funds, but honestly, being our first time, it's kind of hard to get those when you're a no name in the industry. So we did a Seed and Spark actually, which is that website that's specifically for films.
Hmm.
Um, and some friends from the US and friends and family in Turkey. It was kind of this combined effort, which was cool to kind of get those two contexts together. But yeah, all crowdfunding. And then when we ran out of that, post-production was mostly me and my producer, just whatever we made at work, we were paying out of pocket.
Yeah.
But
Well, congratulations on raising the funds to get there, because it worked out very, very beautifully.
I just wanted to add that like even though there's no formal support for shorts in Turkey, the industry is so like people in the industry are so down to make a short if they like it. So many people um on our film worked for like you know symbolic amounts, and a lot of them, yeah, like a lot of them just worked for free, or they helped out, or it was like a trade, or that's usually how it goes, and there's really no other way it would be able to get made. So shout out to my amazing crew.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, turning to you, LiYing, similar question. How did you find the resources, the funding to make this film? I mean, it feels somewhat big in scope because of, I mean, the production value is incredible. You found some amazing locations, and you have some very talented actors and all that. So I was curious, how many days of filming did you end up doing, and how did it all come together for you?
We filmed it for 4 days. Yeah, I don't know it's short or long days because it's my first short, and yeah, but oh, okay. But Chris, when I finish this question, I have to go to airport. Yeah, so
Sure,
yeah,
no
so
problem.
yeah, and before I work in this my company in Taiwan. I work in theater for 9 years, and I do write and director maybe about 30 plays. Yeah, so there are many crews and actors, and it's when I met them in theater, and maybe about 5 or 4 years ago, lots of international streams comes to Asia, like Netflix and HBO and Disney Plus, and so they need lots of contents, and uh, so yeah, and because maybe before in maybe the the films, the feature films in Taiwan maybe is really weak maybe for about 20 years, and there are a few films, and but because the government support shorts, so they comes maybe every year maybe about 100 to 100 shorts. The the money you can supply, yeah, but yeah, so this is my first time to reach out. Oh, I can supply some money to support myself. Yeah, but when so when I first come to do the I don't know the TV series. Yeah, my first work is a TV series, maybe eight episode. So I write about two TV series. Yeah, one is on Netflix and one is on HBO, and it's really tired. And I when I write this so long time, I hurt my back. Yeah, so yeah, so and so I have to go to massage and some Chinese things. Yeah, it's really tired. I think when you write too long, you will kill yourself. So this is the first time I feel. Chris, you say shorts make people free. So when I find this format, it's really free and it's short. I don't need to think about how this the act one, act two, act three, and the character change. So it's really makes really yeah because the the two TV series, one is 8 episodes and one is 12 episodes. It's really long. Yeah. So for me it's but I made a group of really talented people, and in theater and in the series, and um so the hotel in the shorts and is all made by the art director, and he said the things, the whole things for me. Yeah. So I think it's the I think this shows maybe is the we guys want to find something to play to enjoy and to so I think it's like a game. Yeah, it's like we want to find something new in our career. Yeah. So and I also think the government in Taiwan is really support shorts. Yeah. So that's how all things going. Yeah.
That is fantastic. First of all, it's as a sh first short film, very, very impressive. Just from the way it's written to the way it's executed, everything about it is extremely, extremely well done. So congratulations on that. And it's wonderful to hear that the government there is supporting short films in particular, because I think the rest of us are all pretty jealous of that fact to have that kind of resource behind it. So, well, again, congratulations. And congratulations to all four of you. You all made some really, really beautiful films that tell beautiful stories. And it's incredibly inspiring to hear each of you talk about your experience making them, and I think the audiences will really, really enjoy them all and get a lot out of them. So I just wanted to thank all of you all for being here and talking through your experience of making these beautiful films and sharing it with the world so that people have a much more clear idea of what filmmaking is like in all these different corners of the planet, and just have everybody feel a little bit more inspiration to do what they're doing and come and see these beautiful films. So Pranav, Timeea, Ilgın, and LiYing, thank you all so much for joining us today on this panel, and look forward to seeing everybody in attendance at the Atlanta Film Festival this year to enjoy all these films. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, all your guys' beautiful films. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I
Safe
really
travels.
like rehearsal too. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. All right, guys. Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys. Thanks for
Okay.
Bye.